video, I'm going to discuss about introduction to Laravel 11 new features that were released before. Now, these Laravel 11 features are remarkable changes compared to the earlier versions of Laravel 10 and below. So we're going to look at several things. We're going to look at of course, the minimum support for Laravel 11, as well as other things such as streamlined application structure. We have application bootstrap file. We have service providers, opt-in API, and broadcast routing. We're also going to look at middleware and scheduling as well. We're also going to look at exception handling, base controller class. We also have application default, Laravel reverb. Of course, this one I already discussed, so you may want to check a video in the link up. Then we have per second rate limiting. We have introduction of the per second instead of the per minute, which was with the earlier version. We also have health routing, Gracefully encryption key rotation, as well as automatic password rehashing prompt validation. So those are some of the things that you're going to be looking at in this video. Now, when you look at my documentation here, is that Laravel 11 supports the minimum 8.2 version, that is 8.2 PHP version, and that's what we'll be using. So in your text editor here, I already have Laravel 11, and when we go to, this should be on the composer.json, you can see that I'm using PHP 8.2. So that's the minimum you need to be having. Now we have streamlined application structure. As we can see that Laravel 11 introduced a new application. That is a new application, which means the framework has been made more leaner, reducing many files. Now these files, most of them have been handled in the bootstrap/app.php, which now has evolved as the centralized hub for configuring key parts of your application. So now where you used to have, for example, exception handling, which used to be in the app exception, then that should be the kernel. Now it has been brought in one particular place, which is the app.php. We also have routing, middleware, service providers. As you can see here, you can see, actually, let's just look at our application. So when we go to app.php, what you can see here is, this is what you can see. So we have the web routes, we have the console commands, and then the health app, of course, and then the middleware has been, so it has been removed from the kernel where it used to be. The same case with exception. All right, now when you go further, you can see that when you compare Laravel 11 and 10, you can see that all configuration have been centralized in the app.php, while in the Laravel 10 and earlier versions, it used to be separate. So we used to have routes, that is web.php, of course, the facade and all that. And then we have middleware, of course, the app http kernel.php, and the exception handling used to be in the app exceptions/handler.php. So here we are going to look at setting up the Laravel 11, and then let's start with the middleware here. Okay, now we can start on the middleware, and for us to begin from there, we're going to make a middleware, which is going to be a middleware which, of course, is going to log request. That is, the URL is going to record a URL when a user logs into our application. So far, I already have this application running. So this is, so you may just want to go and install the Laravel, that is the version. All right, now this is the installation of Laravel. So you just need to go ahead and just use these commands. Of course, you need to have Composer installed, and of course, you also need to have, for example, I'm using the XAMPP control panel, which is common. So I believe you already have this. So just go ahead and run these commands, and then you'll have something like this. All right, now let's start creating the middleware. So what I'll need to do is to go to the terminal, which I would like you also to do. So since I'm running this one on a local host, of course, on a particular IP address. So what I'll do is I'll come up with another git bash, and then I'm going to create the middleware. Right, so let's start. So PHP artisan make, then here we're going to have middleware, and then the middleware name is log request, like this. So that's the middleware name. And remember, we are just illustrating how to create a simple middleware as part of our learning, as we are learning about the new features in Laravel 11. Now, once we have this, now you can add over to, in other words, you can add a middleware logic, because remember the name of this middleware, as you can see, let's just look for it. It is on the app HTTP, then middleware. So you can see here is where we have our middleware. Of course, this is common. This has been from here. It has been from here from before. But then what about registering the middleware? That's the difference. So here we are going to add a simple logic. So this logic is going to log in request. So this is what I'm going to do. So what you're going to do here is, as you can see on the return here, just above it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have log. Then here I'm going to have info, and then inside there I'm going to have something like this, incoming request, and then here I'm going to have URL like this, and then here we're going to have this is in quotes, and of course this is an array, as you can see from that sign there. Then here I'm going to have requests like this, and then you're going to inquire for the URL, the request URL. So that's what I'm going to have, and then I'm going to close it, as you can see. So let's go ahead and save this. So this is our logic of how we are going to log in request using our middleware. So incoming request, when the user comes to your site, then of course here we are going to log in the request. Of course, you can use the storage log to get the request from the user. All right, now the new feature that was introduced in Laravel 11 is all about registering the middleware. And for us to do this, what you can do here is come on this place. We have middleware like this, and then here we're going to have something like alias like this. And then what you'll have here is that inside it you can have your log request like this. So what you have here is, so we're going to have app, then slash, then here we're going to have HTTP, and then here we're going to have slash middleware, and then slash log request like that. And then of course this is class like this. So now this is how we register middleware within our application. That is, of course, we are given the path to where our middleware is in our application. So that's how we go about it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this one like this. Of course, you can add other middlewares. So you can put a comma there if you, of course, have other middlewares. All right, now once you do this, you're going to create a route. So I'm going to go to the web routes, and then within the web routes here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a route. Actually, we can disable this one for now. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have a route like this. So the route is get, and then here what we have is test log, and then here this is, I'm going to have function, and then within the function here, instead of that ending, we are going to have, actually this one is going to be there like that. So inside here we're going to have return, and then we're going to say this, so we're going to say this route is using the log request middleware like that. So that's what we're going to do. And then now the last thing here we need to do is you must register the middleware like that. And then here you're going now to pass that middleware that we have created, which is the log request like that. And then here, of course, we need to end this one with a comma like that. So the middleware is the log request, which is coming from which of course is this middleware here. And then of course we've registered the middleware here with the name log request. So when the web route looks for the log request with this small case, it is going to look for it here, which is this part here. Right, so that's what we have. So what we can do here is I can copy this. This is the test log, and then I need to come here. So here I need to append this as the endpoint here. And then let's see what is going to happen. So it says app HTTP log not found. I believe we must have forgotten something. Okay, so let's go ahead and first of all, let's go ahead and import our classes. So the class I need to import is this one, the facade log. And then let's go ahead and also within the web here, see if we need to import any. So let's go ahead and try it again. Okay, so this route is using the log request middleware. And what we can do is let's go to so we need to go to the storage logs. So we can look for logs. Do you find it? I think it should be this one, or we have storage and then this one. This is the one. Okay, now we can come here since we want to log, and you can see it is telling us incoming request URL is this one. So it means that whenever a user visits our website, then we can be able to see the URL that the user is using, of course, up to the endpoint, which is now the test log. So that's just a small example on how to work with middleware, and of course the introduction of middleware in Laravel 11. Now let's go to the next one. So the next one is handling exceptions in Laravel 11. So how do we handle exceptions in Laravel 11? So exception handling can also be managed within the bootstrap/app.php, and we can demonstrate this. So what we're going to do here is come back here. So I'm going to clear this. And then what you need to do is I need to run php artisan make, and then here we're going to have exception, and then here I'm going to call this one custom exception like this. I think that's correct. Then click enter. So that middleware is going to be created, as you can see. And then now we need to edit the exception and modify it. So just like we did with the middleware. So how can we go about it? So I need to go to app exceptions, and of course I can just type exception.php custom exception. So this is our exception. So we're going to do some editing. So the first thing we're going to do here is come up with a public function, which I'm going to give it the name report. And then inside it, we're going to have something like, we're going to have log and then error. And then here I'm going to have custom exception or card, and then we end it like that. So that's what I'm going to have. And then of course I can import all classes such as this one here. Let's have it imported. All right, then I'm also going to have another function, which is the render function, which is going to be public function. And then the name of this function is render. Now we're going to pass a parameter, which is going to be request like this. And then inside it, I'm going to have a return statement, which is going to be return response. And then here we're going to return it in JSON. So JSON format. So I'm going to have JSON, and then here I'm going to have error. So whenever we get an error within our application, then we're going to log out, and then we're going to say a custom error occurred, like that. Gonna have an exclamation mark. Yeah. All right, so that's what we have, and then comma, then here just I'm going to have a comma there, and then you're going to pass a 400, of course, just an HTTP status code, just to show the error that has occurred. So that's what we have within our exception. So the render is going to, once we get, you're going to report of an exception that has occurred, and then you're going to render that exception with this, of course, this array, which is the key value, which of course the value is the custom error occurred. Okay, now to trigger this exception, you're going to go to web.php here, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a route, and then I'm going to say route, then get, and then here we're going to have test exception like this, and then we're going to pass function like this. Now within this function is what you're going to have. So we're going to have, then this one, let's close it there. Okay, so inside here, what you're going to do, you're going to have a throw, and then you're going to say throw up slash exceptions. Then here we're going to pass the custom exception that we just had. Then here I'm going to close this. Of course, we may want to see if we are able to import this class, of course, because we need to locate it. Okay, so once we go to this slash test exception, of course, it's going to call that render, which is this one here. So basically here, this basically tells you that we can create custom exceptions within our application in case the user does something within our application. For example, tries to write the wrong, for example, the wrong endpoint within our application, within the URL. Then we can, for example, show him the 404 not found. We can do many items with custom exceptions. So this is just an illustration and just an example. So here we can go and look at test exception like this. And of course, we can see error, custom error occurred, right? So that's how we handle exception. And wait a minute, we need to, just forgot something. Once we have this, then we can record these exceptions, whereby we can have something like this. Actually, what you need to know is just it called this one render here, but this one we have the report, and then here we pass a function like this, and then inside there we have custom exception like that, and then here we have this. So this is just illustration, and then here you can now write whatever you want to write, for example. So you can have something like that. So we have exceptions, report, function, and then unexpected. Okay, so what does it want? Okay, so we need to close this one like that. Okay, and then okay, so here we need to remove this one of them. All right, so that's what we have with our custom exception, and I believe we can import all these classes so that we are able to use them within our application like this. All right, so now when you go to when you come back here again, of course it's still going to give us the same thing because we have not written any logic here about our exception, but that's how you record them. That's how you register them in Laravel 11 as well as the middleware. Now let's go and look at something else here. And the other thing here I want us to look at is the service provider. And the service provider is another concept that was introduced in Laravel 11. So previously we used to have multiple service providers that were responsible for handling different functions, but now many of these tasks are either automatically managed by our Bootstrap, this one here, because we can see here we can register middleware, We can also register exceptions and many other, for example, our web routes and our other console commands. So we can only do if we need to do anything concerning a service provider, we can record it in the app service provider, which was left. And of course, we can access it by coming to this, type in app, and then you get app service provider. So within the boot method here, you can register any you can bootstrap any application service. For example, let's look at one here. For example, if you want to manage events within the service provider, how can you go about it? If you are new to events, you can check a video on Laravel Reverb that I did before, just on the link up. And what you'll discover here is that you can, for example, listen, you can register an event, and that event can be listened to, and then an action can be taken upon. So for example, let's first open the app service provider. So what we are going to do here is we are going to come here within the app service provider, and then within the boot method here, what I'm going to do here is, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have an event like this. So the event is going to be listen, like that, and then inside it you're going to have user registered, like that, and then here we're going to have class, and then we are going to have another one which is going to listen. So for example, when a user registers within our application, what we want to do is we want to send a welcome email to just tell him to just welcome him on our website. So we're going to have a listener, which is going to be this one here, which is the send welcome class. And then here, maybe you're going to pass it under the handle within our event listeners. Of course, you can go and look at that video so that you can understand how to create events, something that I've done before. Okay, so that is what we have. And of course, you can go ahead and import all these classes. So for example, we have user registered. So the class that you may have here is use, and then we have app, then slash events. The reason is not registering because we have not actually created the event itself, but let's just go ahead and register it manually just for illustration. So you're going to have something like that, user registered, and let's have this in caps like this. So it's user, that is use app events, then slash user registered, and then here we can also have the one for, let's copy that one, paste it there. Then we have for listeners, so we're going to have a listener, which is that one. So this is under the listeners, and then this is the send welcome. So send welcome email, like that. So you can see one is when the event is triggered, and then this one is there to listen and act upon that given event, of course. So that tells you that within our app service provider, we can now do that. But before, they used to be scattered everywhere within your application. So maybe you had to create a service specific for user registered send welcome email. But now you can just do these services within your Bootstrap, that is within your boot method. And then of course you can now work with those services there. So that's what used to happen. Now, so you just need to know that the app service provider will will handle most events and listeners in many cases. Okay, but when you need to create any event, any custom event, just like this ones, then you can do them within your app service provider. So it has been left for that purpose. All right, now the next concept here is the opt-in API, which is this one here. Now, we have this concept of opt-in API and broadcasting routing, which is under the API.php and channel.php. In other words, they are not enabled by default, but you can create them by running this command. So for example, when you copy this command here and come back to our terminal and run this command, sorry, this is it's not found. Okay, so let's just disable this for now since we did not create them. Let's come back again. Let's clear this. Okay, so let's come back to the, still getting the same thing. Okay, so we need to remove entirely because I did not create them. Okay, so let me save, and then let's come back again. Can clear this again, and then let's go ahead and install this. Right, so let it install, and then all right, now you can see it's asking if would you like to run open-ended database migration, of course, because it is asking about the tokens table which it wants to run. So I can say yes, and you can see here personal access tokens table, which of course when you go to your PHP my admin, then let's look for actually the database which I already created under the env. The database name is this one here. So we can look for that database, and of course the database name is the Laravel new features. So that's the database, and you can see this is the table which has been created, the personal access tokens. This one of course is used for registering a token when a user is maybe authenticated within your application, and of course, or based on an API, of course, the token will be registered so that that user can be identified with that specific token. Now that is on that command. Now once it does that, the next thing it tells you that you need to add the Laravel Santam as API tokens. Of course, if you're using the Santam for the API, remember also the Santam doesn't come by default, so it gets installed at when you run that command. So when you go to user model, you can see the user model is here, but it doesn't have the use as API. So what we can do here is on the use as, we can say as API, and then tokens like this. So you need to indicate that one like that, and of course you need to import this class as well and from the Laravel Center like that. So that means now you can start building your APIs by using this, by using that command to install so the command, basically what it does here is that the command does several things. As you can see from my document, you can see what it does here is that it will have set the API related features for your application, such as authentication routes and middleware configurations, making it ready for you to build your RESTful API driven systems. Of course, we are talking about, so if you want to check a video that I've done that is on API development with Laravel, you can check that video also in the link up. Right, so that is it on that command. Now the next command, which is very useful command, is this command here. So this command is the broadcasting command. So this command basically is a powerful command because it is the one that will enable you to configure what we call the broadcasting system, enabling real-time event broadcasting. Just what I've described here on user registered and send welcome email event listeners, which is a very powerful concept in Laravel. So you may want to check a video that I've done on Laravel introduction there, and then you'll be able to study about it. Yes, so the broadcasting, and then of course Laravel reverb video, which I've done before. We still have Laravel echo, or actually not echo, but the Laravel pusher. So the pusher, which is of course the traditional, but the new one is Laravel Reverb. Please check that video for you to understand about the reverb. Now let's go ahead and use this command to do this. So you can see if I clear this and then I can go ahead and now you can see here I have two things: published broadcasting configuration file and then channels route file. Would you like to install the reverb? Let's go ahead and install it. Let's go ahead and install it. Remember, all these features are in Laravel 11. The other thing that you're asked about is, would you like to install and build node dependencies? Of course, you are also going to say yes, and then you're going to do that. All right, so we already have it now installed, and what will happen is that now you can, when you go to your .env file, the environmental configuration file, you can see that we have the reverb installed, and then you get these credentials which you're going to use when you're working now with your reverb. That is the event listener. So look at that video and you'll understand all these concepts. Right, now the next feature that was introduced in Laravel 11 is the scheduling. Now scheduling has been simplified with the introduction of schedule facade. Of course, facade basically means that it is a design pattern which of course you can hide the detailed features of any framework and only reveal what is needed for the user. So that's the facade when you hear the word facade. All right, now you can see here you can define tasks directly in the routes console.php instead of the traditional, which is the console/kernel.php. So we used to have that traditionally, but now we do not have that. So what you can see here is when you go to console.php, you can see now you can register your scheduling commands here. Now, for example, if you want to send an email to your users every day, you can have a command like this. So you can schedule. So you can schedule a command like this, and then what you'll have is emails, and then here you have sent. And then these ones you can put them in quotes like this, and then here you have the daily, and then of course that's it. So the command is going to send emails daily to your users using just this schedule command. So once you have it like that, of course you need to import this class, which is the facade, like that. Go ahead and save that. So the next thing is to go ahead and create this command, run this command, sorry. So php artisan make, and then here you're going to have the command like this, and then the command is send emails like that. So that command is going to be created, and once that command has been created, which is send emails, it is console command. So the app signature is going to be app send emails. That's the signature, and description is, you can write whichever description that you want to write. So for example, we can write something like this, send daily emails like that. And then here we can modify this and say emails sent, something like that. Once you have this one, the handle is the one which is now going to execute the console command. So here you can have this keyword, and then you refer it to this info, and then here you're going to say emails sent successfully, like this. And then you can end it like that. So once you have this one set, I believe the console command, okay, So what you can do is you can come back here to your terminal, and then within your terminal, what you can do is you can run this command php artisan schedule. Sorry, schedule, or do you write it? Okay, schedule, and then run like this. So you can run that command saying php artisan schedule run. No command ready to be ran. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and try with every minute instead of every day. Remember, we are not building this. We are not like building an actual app. We are just testing the new concept. So let's just try with every minute, and let's go ahead and see. So every minute, and the send emails is going to, so this is going to remain the same. And you can go ahead and run this command, and you can see the command is working now. So with the daily is not working, but with the every minute it's working. Be somewhere here. So this one is daily, but I've used every minute. But then you just need to know that the schedule facade may now be defined directly within your app console. That is what we are interested in looking at, and that's what we have seen here. All right, now to automate task, you need to set up a cron job on your server, just something like this on your server. That is to schedule every minute. That is to on your server to run the scheduler every minute. Of course, you can have something like path to your project, and then you have this command which is going to be running your application now and then. Okay, so that's what you need to do here. And then when you look at one of my application that I also have something similar whereby I'm able to run a command, a scheduled command, for example, that is php artisan queue work. And of course, this command runs within that is 0 minute hour weekday. So that means that within a day, this command is able to run, because when I edit here, you can see that it runs within a day and a month. So that's how I have designed it. For example, let's just go and look at it further. Here you can see this is now the command, whereby I also have another command for backing up my database, that is php artisan backup run. So it's able to back up my database in case anything happens with my application. All right, so that's about it. So the next item here I want us to look at is the base controller class. So this controller class is basically what happened is with Laravel 11, you do not have now we do not have a class whereby you can, of course, extend it. That's why it's called the abstract class controller. So it has been simplified to give developers more flexibility over the application controllers. So what you need to know is the base controller now is an abstract class. It doesn't have any inherited methods or traits. So for example, you can look for it under the controller. Under the controller, you can look for it, and you can see this is what we are talking about. So it doesn't extend any method. So you can, of course, since it has no inheritance, it has no default traits. So what you can do is you can now create a class of your own and extend it, giving you more flexibility as a developer. Now, for example, look at this. Let's say, for example, we had a controller like this. For example, here, I come back here and I make php artisan make controller. And the name of that controller is product.php. Then let's add a colon here, like that. Now, so we can come to this controller, and what we're going to have is that, for example, let's say you wanted to have something to do with authorization. For example, this one is used for policy management. So let's say you have something like this, then authorize like this, and then inside here you have a create. So you have something like this, create, and then you have a model, of course the model for the product controller, so that is product, and then the class. So you close this one, and then you have another one for validation like this. So you have something like validated data, and then this is equals to this keyword, and then you have validate like this, and then here we have requests like this. So for example, we have name, and then maybe we have certain requirements. For example, the name is required and it should be a string, and then the max character should be 255 like that. And then next we have price, for example. So price, then we have, it's also required and it's numeric. So this is what you have. Now you can also have, of course, other additional ones. So here we have, sorry, actually this is within, okay, so the method here could be something like public function, and then here we have the function name is store, and then inside it we have, of course, the the request, and then the object of the class request. Okay, and then of course here you have something like this. Let's take this one there. All right, so that's what you have. So on the store method, this is what you have. Now you can see we have authorization and request. So what is going to happen here is that I'm going to use something like this. So you can see on this class, I'm going to have these two here. So let me copy this. And what I'm going to have is I'm going to have authorizes like this. So that basically means that let's send this one like this, and then need to have one more. So what you can see here is that I'm calling for these two classes, and basically what happens is that if you need authorization or validation methods in a controller, you have to define them explicitly, include them, the necessary traits, so that you can use them within your method. So the base controller class, before it used to provide them out of the box, but now what you need to know is that they already, you just need to define them if you want to use them. So that is one of the changes in Laravel 11, and of course you can come here and read more about it. So the base controller class has been simplified, so it no longer extends the controller class. So you can, for example, if you want to use these traits which have been removed, as they may be included in your application, you just have to define them so that you can use them. So that's what we mean here. All right, so with that understood, you can just come and read more about it on my documentation to understand. The other concept is application defaults. So what do we mean? So when you go to your .env file, you can find that application defaults have been in other words, Laravel comes with SQLite. So you can just check, let's come back here, and what you can see here is Laravel comes with SQLite as the default database, but before you used to have MySQL. However, you can configure it back depending. And then you also have database driver for session, cache, and queue. So looking at this one, I've configured MySQL, but before, by default, it could be SQLite, for example, like this, by default. But before that, default used to be MySQL. But then Laravel 11 came with SQLite as the default, and then the rest of the session, the cache, of course, which have been there from before. So those are the application defaults you need to know. So this is just simple because you can always change the database. The next concept is what we call per second rate limiting. Per second rate limiting is a concept whereby you set maximum request the client can make within your API within a specified time window period. If that specified time window period expires, then of course you are going to send a message like maximum request of what you're trying to access. For example, this happens a lot in many applications, including AI. For example, you're trying to make, maybe you're using an API from AI, for example, OpenAI, and then they must have a rate limit. Rate limiting is configured in many applications that use API. So for example, we can do that. We can come to app service provider, this one here, and let's go ahead and remove this as well as this. And what we need to do here, I need to define, for example, a certain logic for the rate limit that we want to implement. So for example, here I'm going to have a rate limiter, and then this is going to be for tests rate limit, and here this going to pass a callback function. Then here we're going to have request, then request like that. Now here okay, so inside we are going to return. Now what we are illustrating here is not more about the rate limiting, or we are not studying about the rate limiting, but what we are studying is the per second, which was introduced. Before we used to have the per minute, but now we have the per second rate limit. You can see the per second rate limit was introduced by Tim, and now you can rate limit based on a second instead of the minute. So that's what we want to understand here. And just to save time, let's just come back here and let's just get this code here so that we just save time. What do we have here? Unclosed. So I just noticed that I must have two of them. These ones, because of the first one for this, and then the second one for which part, and then we have this one for this part here. Now this rate limit is per second, and you can see here I'm returning only 1 second. So if the API requests are too many in other words, within that specified period of the window period, if they exceed, then we are going to throw a message which is going to say too many requests, please try again in 1 second. And then the HTTP status code is 429. Of course, you are doing the request by IP address. So that's why we're saying by request IP, meaning IP address. So we are looking into the IP address based on the user request, and then of course we flash that message. So we allow 2 requests per second. That is, we allow 1 request per second, and then return a status code with the JSON message, which is this one here. Then we track our request by the IP address. Now we can come to our web route. Then our web route here, what we can do here is we can do it, actually just do it somewhere here. And what we can do here is very simple. Just from our example here is that we can add something like this here. So let me just paste this one here. Sorry for this. Right. And what we have is test rate limit. And we are returning a JSON message which says you've accessed the endpoint successfully. And then there's a middleware that you're going to use, which is called Laravel middleware. This middleware it's a built-in middleware that works with our rate limiter. within our configuration app service provider, and basically what it does, it will handle all the rate limiting logic internally within our code, so we don't need to create any external or any custom middleware. Now what we can do next is to create what we call a test PHP script, and so far this is what I came up with. So let me just go and copy it so that we don't waste much time. However, I could have typed this, but due to time factor for today, let's just do this. So what I'll need to do is I'll need to create this file, and of course I can create it on the root. So we have something like touch command and then test rate limit .php like that. Then let's look for that file, which is this one here, and then I'm going to paste this code. So what this code does, before we do that one, let's just do some indentation thing as well as this one. Now what you can see here, actually this one should be, so what we'll do is we need to come here, and then I need to do something like this. So what I'll need to do here is I'll need to have something like that, then test rate limit. So this one is going to call this file, which is this one here. This loop is going to, of course, you already know about looping statements. So we are going to have a maximum of 5 requests within 1 second. If they exceed, then that error is going to be thrown. So that's what this code is going to do. So we can see here the echo request, then +1 HTTP status code. Then we're going to run that HTTP status code. So in short, this is what we must be having. So since we already have this, our web route is this one. So it's going to return this. And let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to do this one in the terminal by running php test and then rate limit.php like that. Now as you can see, it is telling us that this is okay. So it is telling us that you've accessed this endpoint successfully, and as you can see here is that this is what we get. But you can see here at this point, it means that it is exceeded because I can see that we have too many requests. Please try again in 1 second. So this is what I'm talking about. So another thing is you need to know is on this rate limit, we registered it on app service provider. Now you can see that we need to import the rate limiter facade and also the cache rate limiting. We also need to have these two imported, so don't forget about that. And that's all about the rate limiting, that is per second rate limiting that was introduced in Laravel 11. The other concept that was introduced in Laravel 11 is the health routing in Laravel 11, which introduces a convenient health routing feature to allow you to define simple check endpoint for your application. You can monitor your services, that is, for example, monitoring services or orchestration systems like Kubernetes. Let's say your application is running within a Kubernetes service. Well, of course, the containerization, the Docker, etc. So you can monitor your application using this new feature in Laravel 11. So how can you go about it? So when you go to our app.php, you can see it's this one here, and it's already enabled by default. So you can have it like that, and then within your application, what you can do is you can come here and type this one, type the app like this. and you can see it will show you the HTTP request received so far. Response rendered is in 497 milliseconds. So this one, it's returning a response which is indicating that your application is running, and the response of your application is this. So you can monitor your application with this tool from time to time to see how it's working or it's been rendered. And that's all about the application app. Now, the other concept is called the gracefully rotating encryption keys. This is another powerful concept that was introduced in Laravel 11. What you can do with this one is that in case you change your application encryption key, what will happen is that all the authenticated user sessions will be logged out of your application, because every cookie, including session cookies, are encrypted by Laravel. So what you can do is you can define what is called, or what is known as app previous keys within your environmental variable, whereby you are able to, in case Laravel doesn't find the original key or the key that you used to encrypt that given data, then it can try other previous keys so that it can decrypt that data, and of course the users will not be logged out in your application. I believe so, you've got it. Now, what we can do here is we can define it. So what we can do, we can go to in our web route, we can define something like this. So for example, we can come here and I will copy that. And then I'll go to my web route, which is, then you can paste this. So let's paste that one, as well as we also need to paste with this one like this. Sorry about the copying, but you just have to bear with me. Now, so this is for this part, so this needs to be there, and then this one is for this part. We can take this one somewhere there, and then we can also have this one somewhere there. Right, so this is what we have, and then I can go ahead and explain what is happening here. Now, what is happening here from the commands is that we store an encrypted value in the session. The encrypted value is my secret message, which is our data, which is this one, as you can see, session decrypt demo encrypted, then encrypted, and then we return a response in JSON format by saying that this message here has been encrypted. So value encrypted and stored in session. Now rotate your keys in the .env file, and then when we access the endpoint decrypt demo, retrieve and decrypt the value, whereby we retrieve the encrypted value within our session, and we now decrypt it by saying decrypted, then encrypted, then decrypt this message, the data that we already have there up. And then of course, if we don't find anything, we say, or if there's an error, we say no value found, and then we return that message in JSON format by saying decrypted, and then info values decrypted using current or previous keys. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's just very simple. Then go ahead and save this. So next, what we can do next is, now let's visit our, for example, now when you go to, actually let me copy this one first. So let me copy this one, the encrypted demo. Now let's go to the .env file, and you can see our current key is this one here. So you're going to decrypt this data that we have just copied from our web, which is this one here, my secret message. You are going to encrypt it with this encryption key in our .env file, which is this one here. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is here we are going to paste that, and as you can see, the message has been, or the data has been encrypted with this, with the current now encryption key. But in case, so what you're going to do is you're going to copy this key like this. I'm going to copy it like this, and then here what I'm supposed to do here is I'm supposed to define app previous underscore then keys, which is equal to the base. Now we have base 64 like that. So what I'm supposed to do here is copy that key and paste it there like that, right? Then now what will happen is that this data has been encrypted with this key, but now this key we are now going to generate another key using PHP artisan key generate like this. Key generate, oh sorry, I not saved this one. Okay, let's try again. Key generate, and you can see now the key has been generated. So this is now the current key. So what Laravel will do, it will look for, as now we go, when you go now to decrypt demo, it's going to look for, of course it will use the current key, but since this data was not encrypted with the current key but the previous key, then it is now going to go for the previous keys and look for that encryption key. Once it finds it, it's going to decrypt that data. So let's go and look at this. So what you are supposed to do is come here, and of course we need now this endpoint, which is this one here. And what you're going to do is you're going to come here and you're going to append this decrypt demo, and you can see now it has decrypted our message using the previous key, which of course you already know, sorry, it's on env, which you already know, it's this one here. Let's say this key that I have, this, now if I change, for example, what I'm trying to illustrate, if I change the key to something else, the previous key, for example, I copy this key, this one here, this one, I copy like this, and then I place it here, which is now the previous key. And here I come and generate another key like this, generate it again. So if I come here and use this, we already know that our message was encrypted with this key. So if I copy that key and place it there like that, I believe this one should not give us any. And then I come to demo. So this should be decrypt like this. So it's going to give us null because it can't find the original key that we used because we have removed it. I believe that's what I was trying to drive at. Right. So that is it. Now the last concept, because this video is getting a little bit longer, is on what we call the Laravel prompts. So Laravel prompts was also introduced in PHP 11, and what you can see here is that it's a package for adding beautiful user-friendly forms to your command line application with browser-like features, including placeholder text, validation, etc. So let's go ahead and illustrate this quickly. So for example, you can use this command. So let me just go ahead and use this command, and then what I'm going to do here is we can run that command, and then this command is going to create that prompt example. Now this prompt example, it's going to be app prompt example command, and then the description we could have here is something like demonstrate Laravel prompts with validation, like that. And then in the handle part here, what we can do is we can, for example, define several things. We can say name is equals to text, and then inside there we can have what is your name with a question mark, and then here we are validate like that, and then inside we can actually, now we can also, in other words, we can also validate, because remember these are just forms whereby we need to validate. For example, users should their name, for example, just the name, for example, it's required, then the minimum words should be 3, for example, on this one here, and then max character should be 255, like that. And you can add a comma here so that you can add any other data that you need to. And then here we can have something like this info, and then here we have hello, and then here we pass the variable, which is name, like that, and then we close. And then here we can return a statement for our application. So here we can have command, and then this command is success, like that. Right, and then go ahead and save this. So what can you see here? You can see the name, text, what's your name, then we validate. And then once the user gives the name, this is we can of course have this logic of hello, then the name. So for you to do that, to run this, we can clear our terminal, and let me just expand this so that you can see it well. Then we can have PHP artisan, and then app, then here prompt. Actually, now what we are doing, we are calling this signature here, the protected signature, because that's how we work with console commands. So sorry, should be here. So here we can just paste that. So the app prompt, and then example command, like that, and then we enter this. So what error do we have here? Execute console command. I believe we may not have. Okay, so we need to import this. We need to import this. Okay, and then we import it like that because we are using the Laravel prompts. And then I've forgotten, actually we need to, when you are working with this one, there's something that I'm forgetting. We need to, let's click on this one. We need to install, actually I forgot this. So we need to install this, and need to install this. It's just forgotten because it can recognize this. So here I need to install it. Right, so once you have that installed, now you can go ahead and run the same command as we did before. So the command was this one here. This is the command, should be the command here. So the console command we need to run is this one here. So let me just go ahead and run it again. Remember, I had already imported the Laravel prompts text because now we're using text in our case here. And it was asking me what's your name, and then I'll just write Brian. Hello Brian, and that's it. So we can go deeper on this, but just illustration of what was introduced in Laravel 11. Right, so if you want to learn more about Laravel and other courses, you may want to check out my Udemy courses on the link below, and then you'll find some good courses that will get you started on using Laravel framework. Right, so if you have enjoyed this video, you have got something from this video, please like this video, share and comment, and I'll meet you in the next video.